Hey, hello everyone, and welcome to our Big 12 basketball men's tournament preview and predictions. So, Jack, what are you most excited for this upcoming next 5 days?
Well, there should be some good games. I'm excited, and we'll see the seeding for March Madness.
Yeah, this year the Big 12's been an absolute bloodbath for every team. I don't know if there's really too much NCAA tournament on the line here because I think we kind of clearly have 9 teams in and 5 teams that are not. Kansas State, if they get hot,
They need to
could
push.
maybe change that. Unfortunately, UCF and Cincinnati, I think, would basically have to win it, along with Oklahoma State and West Virginia. Kansas State, if they get 2 or 3 wins, they get 2, I think they're right there. 3, I think should get them in. Obviously, 4, you're winning the tournament. So we start off Tuesday with a couple of games. The 13 and 12 seed. We have Oklahoma State and UCF in the early game, and then West Virginia, Cincinnati in the afternoon game. So kind of my thoughts are Oklahoma State obviously had a tough year, but boy, they're young. Mike Boyden looks like he's probably coming back next year, and if his players come back, it could be a good team, so they have an opportunity to get some momentum going for next year. And then UCF, man, they have some good wins. Probably haven't done enough to have any NCAA tournament consideration, but they can sure play D, but their offense struggled. What do you see happening in this one?
Well, Oklahoma State struggled. They will need to shoot the ball well if they want to win the game.
So I'm going to go with Central Florida. Who are you going with?
I'm also going to go with Central Florida.
And
I
then
can't see them losing to Oklahoma State in this one.
Then the nightcap, we have West Virginia versus Cincinnati. Cincinnati was on that bubble a lot of the year. They have a pretty good net, a good KenPom, but their record just isn't good enough to probably make the tournament. But I don't think they should have any problem with West Virginia, which has obviously had a rough year with Huggy Bear having his troubles before the season started and being dismissed. So I'm going to go with Cincinnati in this one.
Cincinnati is a really good defense. West Virginia will have to shoot the ball really well, but I got Cincinnati.
And then on Wednesday, we both have UCF, so we'd have UCF and BYU. And other than Houston, I think right now BYU is the scariest team in the Big 12. And I think with not playing the day before like UCF, they got a really good defense, but they just aren't going to be enough to score enough points to beat BYU. So I'm going with BYU.
I think BYU's offense is too elite and dynamic for UCF. As long as they don't struggle and fall apart like in the second half versus Iowa State, they should have a pretty easy win.
Then the next game, we have 8 seed TCU and 9 seed OU. Both teams are probably comfortably in the tournament, but they've struggled lately. I know Oklahoma's lost 5 of the last 7 games, and TCU lost at home to UCF on Saturday. I think they're both in, but they're not playing well. So whoever loses this game is going to go to the tournament looking poorly.
I got TCU. I think TCU's offense is pretty good. If they can handle the ball, like if they have a main ball handler that they can use and a main point guard, because Jameer Nelson and Avery Anderson will need to figure it out if they want to win this game.
Yep, I like TCU as well with Nelson, Miller, Anderson, even O'Bannon. I think they'll win, but I could see this one going either way. Then the 7-10 game, we got Texas and Kansas State. To me, Texas is a team, they've really underachieved this year, but they're still a team with a lot of talent.
They do look good. They have a lot of hustle. If Dylan Dessou gets hot from 3, they can beat any team in the nation. I got Texas beating,
Kansas State. They got Kansas State on Saturday.
Kansas State.
And Kansas State obviously had that big win against Iowa State. A very disappointing year, I guess, for them, because I think they ended up 8-10 in the Big 12, which isn't bad, but only 18-13 overall with not a super tough preseason schedule. I know they lost to USC early on, which ended up being a kind of a bad loss the way USC was playing most of the year until they got hot lately. But I think I got to go with Texas too. They could be a scary team, but they've all underachieved as well this year. But still a pretty good matchup in a 7-10 for a conference. one team that's clearly in the tournament, and then Kansas State is the one team I think could possibly play themselves in the tournament. I think it'd take.
They would have to beat Iowa State and Texas if they want to have a shot at making the tournament.
Yep, I think that, and possibly even a Baylor, Kansas in the next round. And then we both have Cincinnati going up against Kansas in the next round. This is maybe another tough one because Dickinson
And
with his
McCullough.
separated shoulder.
And McCullough probably won't play in the game. Cincinnati's defense will struggle then. We'll have to see how Kansas's bench can respond to the two main players they've had all season out. We'll have to Furphy and Harris will definitely have to step up on offense if they want to win.
And in Kansas City, Kansas will definitely have the home court advantage. Obviously, if we don't know if McCullough or Dickinson's playing, it's tough to pick. With the rest, because I know Cincinnati had to play West Virginia the night before, I'm going to go with Kansas, but it wouldn't surprise me if Kansas says, hey, let's just not play Dickinson, McCullough, play some other guys, get our rest, and try to get healthy for the NCAA tournament, because this is a team that started off, I think, preseason number 1, and going 10-8 in the Big 12 is not what they imagined. But they're still a team, if they're a 4 or 5 seed, not a team you want to play in the NCAA tournament if healthy. But if they're not healthy, obviously we know what happens because they just lost to Houston by 30 on Saturday.
I'm going to take the upset. I think Cincinnati their defense will be able to stop Kansas's struggling offense with no McCullough or Dickinson. I don't think Harris has enough offense in him to carry Kansas. And KJ Adams, he's struggled, but he's been good in the clutch. But I got Cincinnati. If they can hit the threes, they'll win this game.
And Jack, the one thing I found interesting about Wednesday's matchups and the 8 teams that we have playing, 7 of them are probably in the NCAA tournament, and the other one, Kansas State, still has a shot. So that's makes it a very interesting tournament for the second round where we're not even to the teams that got byes yet. That brings us on to Thursday, where we both have BYU taking on Texas Tech. This one's kind of tough to me. I'll let you start, then I'll tell you what I think.
Well, Texas Tech shoots free throws insanely well, and BYU doesn't. That's a start. And then if Pop Isaac can do anything, because Pop Isaac struggled some games, but he's also been really good. Let's see. Texas Tech, their offense looked really good versus Baylor. They hit like 4 straight threes at one point. But I think BYU's offense is too good. I think they'll hit threes around the block. I think Afifi, what's his name?
Ali Khalifa, I believe.
Is a really good. He leads the league in assist to turnover ratio. And I think Noah Waterman can get hot from 3. And I think BYU will be too much for Texas Tech.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me. I usually like the team not playing the day before. But I think I'm going to go with BYU too because I think they're one of the biggest surprise teams in the country. So I will go with BYU, but if Tech wins, I would not be surprised at all because they had a good year as well. But that brings us up to, we both have TCU against the number 1 seed, Houston Cougars.
Man, I think Houston's defense is too good for TCU. I think they can shut down Emmanuel Miller and then make TCU's guards have to play really good. But I don't think Avery Anderson and Jameer Nelson are good enough guards to win the game versus Houston, especially if Shedd's playing well.
And I'm going to go with Houston too. It's not only do they have the number 1 defense in the country, they also have the ranked 11 offense according to KenPom. And Shedd, if it comes down to the end, I just trust him to make the plays. And their defense is relentless. And coming off playing a tough game against Oklahoma the night before, assuming TCU wins, whichever one of these teams wins, they're just going to have a very tough time going against that Houston defense, which is going to make it a night of 40 minutes that is going to be hard work and very tough to deal with.
TCU still, even if they lose this game, they're still looking good for March Madness after a win of Oklahoma if they can end up winning. They're a scary team. You don't really want to play them in March Madness.
Then we both have Texas taking on the number 2 seed Iowa State. And this one's always fun because you have old Tyrese Halliburton, who was Big 12 Freshman of the Year. Tyrese Hunter, sorry. Yep. Tyrese Hunter, who was Big 12 Freshman of the Year a couple years ago for Iowa State, obviously transferred to Texas. So go up against his old team. So I know both teams really want to win this one. And, Iowa State with the number 2 defense in the country. Now, their offense has really struggled of late, but with the extra rest, and they will also have that home court advantage. They bring a ton of fans to Kansas City. I think Iowa State will sneak by Texas. It'll be a close game, but I like Iowa State with the extra rest winning this one.
If Texas can get hot from 3 with Dylan DeSue, Weaver with his hustle, I think Texas can win this game. I think Texas will struggle on the boards versus Iowa State. Iowa State struggled recently getting rebounds, but I think they'll lose the board game. But I got Texas on the upset. I think Dylan DeSue's clutch for 3. I think he's going to have some huge shots going in late in the game. And Iowa State struggles from free throws, and they foul a lot. But Iowa State's defense is really good, but I still got Texas. I think Texas is going to make a run.
All right, so we got a difference of opinion there. And then the next game, we have Baylor taking on, I have them taking on Kansas, and Jack, you have them taking on Cincinnati. So I'll start first with Baylor, Kansas, because we're concerned about who Kansas will and will not play for them. And even with the home court advantage, they've had a limited bench. I know they've played more bench people recently. And Baylor has notoriously not done well in this tournament, but I just don't know how much Kansas wants to be here this weekend or this week. So I'm going to take Baylor over Kansas. A lot of talent on that Bears team with the rest, and with Kansas resting players possibly. Right, I just can't go against Baylor, the Bears. I'm taking the Bears.
I have Baylor versus Cincinnati. I think Baylor's way too talented for Cincinnati. Cincinnati will make it close at the start, but I think Baylor's talent is too much for Cincinnati, and they'll pull away. Ray J. Dennis, Misi, well, it's a great duo. I think they're too much for Cincinnati's offense and defense.
And then on Friday's semifinals, I think we both have BYU against Houston. And I know BYU is a dangerous team. They can shoot from all over the court. Khalifa is a great passer, but to me, that Houston defense is a nightmare. And they already went to BYU beginning of the season and beat them there, which is not an easy task. I think BYU only lost 2 games at home all year. So I can't go against the Cougars.
I got the same thing. BYU's bench has proven themselves over the year. I think BYU will struggle versus Houston's defense. Houston's defense is too good. I think BYU's defense will struggle versus Houston. I think Shed will tear them apart. But I think if they can get some threes going in, they'll have a shot. BYU will keep it close, but Houston will pull away in the second half.
And then the second semifinal, I have Iowa State taking on Baylor, and I think you have Texas taking on Baylor. So I'll go with the Iowa State-Baylor matchup. So they played first in the middle of the year, and Baylor won a very interesting game by 2 points, where Iowa State shot a 3 at the end, banked it in, but they called it good. Then the refs reviewed it, and it was clearly not in time. Probably needed 0.2 of a second more. But we saw these two teams play last year in the Big 12 tournament, where Baylor was a top 10 team, I believe, and Iowa State was really struggling. And Iowa State pulled it off with the home court advantage that they'll have in Kansas City. And Baylor's the only team Iowa State has not beat in the Big 12 this year. I think Iowa State beats them, completes the sweep of all the other 13 teams, and moves on to the finals.
I think,
You have Texas.
I have Texas and Baylor. Texas has hustle, and Baylor's got talent. It's going to be a really, really good game. I think it'll come down to whoever team can shoot free throws better. And I think Baylor will be able to shoot more pressure free throws. There's not going to be that many fans for Texas or Baylor because it's far up in Kansas City. So neither team will have a home court advantage going into this game. Texas and Baylor, it's going to be a high-scoring game. Both teams can shoot the ball well. but I think Baylor's going to be too much for Texas.
All right, so going into the finals on Saturday, we both have the Houston Cougars there, no surprise. I have the Iowa State Cyclones, and you have the Longhorns of Texas.
I Baylor.
Or Baylor, I'm sorry. You have Baylor. So, I'll go with the Iowa State-Houston matchup that I have first. And they played twice this year. In the first game in Ames, Iowa State took a big lead early. Took, I think, a double-digit lead into halftime. Houston got all the way back, tied it up, maybe took the lead, and then Milan von Chilovic, I believe, made a shot with 20 seconds left. Iowa State ended up winning by 4. And then they played again 3 or 4 weeks ago in Houston. Houston got off to the big lead. Iowa State cut into it, never quite tied it up or took the lead, but they hung in there. But Houston was too much. So in the rubber match here, even though Iowa State will definitely have the fan advantage, it could be 90-10% Iowa State to Cougar fans. I think the Cougars are the one team in the Big 12 that is just too good, could possibly win a national title. So I'm taking Houston Cougars to cut down the nets in Kansas City on Saturday.
Well, I have Baylor and Houston in the Big 12 championship game. I think it'll be a great game for offense versus defense in this one. I think Houston's they'll be tired from all the games and the Big 12 gauntlet, which they played so good. I think they're a little worn down, and they'll need make a run in March Madness. I think they'll be resting. I don't think they'll be 100% in this game. They don't need the win as big as Baylor, because Baylor has a chance of a 2 seed if they win it all. But I think Baylor's going to be a 3 seed going into it. But I think Baylor's going to win. I think they have more rested than Houston going into this tournament. I think Baylor's talent is too good for. I think both teams have equal talent. If Baylor can stop Houston's 3-point and play some defense late in the game, I think they'll win. It'll be a really good game, though.
Yep, it should be a very exciting tournament. You know, can't remember seeing a tournament with this many quality teams. They are all beat up. I'll be very interested to see which teams want to be there and win it, because I think we'll definitely get a good indication of the teams that are showing up to win it and the teams that are looking just to get some rest for the NCAA tournament. You know, one of the matchups I'm really interested in is TCU-OU, just to see which team can kind of get on track, because whoever loses that game is really going to be struggling going into the NCAA tournament. And then another game I'm pretty interested to see what Kansas does, because, you know, right now, if the season ended, it'd probably be a 4 seed from the predictions. They had a great preseason schedule. I know they beat Tennessee, UConn, Kentucky. But in the Big 12, they went 10-8, which not something Kansas does. So how will they perform in Kansas City?
I think Kansas needs to win. They need to win. I don't think they'll get it, but they really need to win going to the Big 12, heading into March Madness.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, and should be a good tournament. We'll see you later.